Princess Velara of the Oryxian Star Dominion had always known she was the least important heir in her family. She was the youngest of 12 royal children, born many cycles after the rest, as if she were a final footnote in the long and glorious history of her people. The Dominion stretched across 30 star systems, controlled fleets larger than some nations' populations, and carried a royal bloodline that was said to shine with old cosmic pride. In such a grand empire, one small princess hardly mattered. Everyone reminded her of this, even when they tried to be polite. Nobles bowed to her with cold formality. Advisors spoke over her, not to her. Officers smiled like adults humoring a child. Even her older siblings, while not unkind, treated her as someone who needed protection rather than responsibility. But Velara was not blind, nor weak, nor foolish. She was observant. She watched everything that happened around her, every hesitation, every strained expression, every quick secret conversation that ceased the moment she walked by. She studied politics, diplomacy, and the long histories of interstellar alliances. And because no one took her seriously, she could move quietly, unnoticed. She listened more than she spoke, and over the last year she had heard something disturbing. The Dominion's alliances were cracking. Some species complained the Dominion demanded too much tribute. Others claimed trade agreements had been broken. A few secretly built new fleets stronger than what their treaties allowed. The Dominion's own political council argued more fiercely every month, blaming each other for the unrest. Something was wrong. Something big. But every time Velara tried to speak up, she received the same patient smile, the same soft dismissal. "Little star, grown matters are not for you," her eldest brother would say. "Your kindness is sweet, but the universe of politics is too sharp for you," her tutors insisted. "This is above your station," the advisors whispered. So she remained silent, outwardly. Inwardly, her worries grew. One evening, Velara sat in the observatory tower of the royal palace, high above the main capital. The tower was quiet, cool, and filled with shimmering star maps. It was her favorite hiding place. Through the transparent ceiling, she could see the stars scattered across the night sky like glowing dust across dark velvet. She enjoyed imagining the lives on each distant world. Miners, scientists, traders, soldiers, diplomats, and wondered what they feared, hoped, or dreamed of. Tonight, however, she could not enjoy the view. Her thoughts kept returning to the secret reports she had overheard. Supply ships disappearing near neutral borders. Strange encoded transmissions from unknown sources. Radical groups rising in hidden corners of multiple species' territories. It felt like someone was pushing the entire sector toward a dangerous conflict, and Velara feared the Dominion would not be ready for the storm. She touched the crystal surface of the star map and whispered, "Who would want a war this large?" The map responded by zooming into a cluster of nearby systems. It displayed the major species in glowing colors: Oryxian blue, Marin green, Voltrixian red, Darnak yellow, and many more. Each species had their own culture, their own strengths, their own struggles. The Dominion led them all, or supposed to. But the map also revealed a small, faint gray symbol, one she had been studying for months: humanity. Humans controlled only a few star systems near the edge of the sector. They were not the most advanced, not the wealthiest, not the strongest. Many great powers barely acknowledged them. They had climbed into the stars only a few generations ago. And yet, Velara was fascinated by them. She had read every report about human diplomacy, human exploration, human science, and human conflict resolution. Humans were unpredictable, creative, persistent, sometimes reckless, sometimes brilliant. They had survived disasters that would have destroyed other species. They formed alliances not out of fear, but out of a strange and honest desire to cooperate. They were not perfect, far from it, but they were something different, something interesting. And when no one else listened to Velara's concerns, she began comparing her findings with information from human outposts. She noticed patterns the Dominion ignored. Humans reacted faster to the unusual transmissions. They had detected suspicious movements among fringe groups. They even strengthened their border patrols months before anyone else. Most importantly, it seemed humans had identified the same threat she feared. But no one listened to them either. The larger powers brushed them aside, just like they brushed her aside. Velara found herself feeling an unexpected sense of connection. "If no one will hear me," she murmured, "maybe they will." She spent several weeks secretly gathering all the information she had. Every intercepted signal, every political shift, every strange rumor. She built a detailed picture of the coming disaster, but she needed someone who would actually take the evidence seriously, someone who would help her stop the approaching crisis. Not her siblings, not the Dominion's council, not her own advisors, but perhaps humanity. The idea was unthinkable. A royal princess traveling to a minor power without permission? Choosing an ally outside the Dominion's influence? And yet, the more she considered it, the more it made sense. Humans were known for their curiosity and willingness to engage. They respected individuals rather than titles. And they had no reason to dismiss her warnings. They were already investigating similar threats. She made her decision on the night another secret report fell into her hands. A recorded message from a hidden group calling itself the Sector Rebirth. The message suggested a plan to ignite conflict among the major powers until the entire region collapsed into chaos. The voice spoke with chilling confidence, ending with, "The Dominion will fall first." Velara felt cold fear settle into her bones. But then, just as quickly, it transformed into determination. She could not wait for her people to act. She could not trust the council to believe her. She could not rely on her family to treat her as more than a child. If the sector was in danger, she had to find someone who would listen. Late at night, she packed a small diplomatic case with data crystals, encrypted files, and a personal letter requesting cooperation. She wore a simple Orcian travel cloak, plain enough to avoid attention, but still formal enough to show her status if needed. She moved through the palace halls like a shadow, slipping past guards who never expected a princess to wander alone. She reached the private hangar where small diplomatic shuttles were stored. She activated one using her personal access code, a privilege usually reserved for training flights or ceremonial visits. But tonight, she used it for a far greater purpose. As the shuttle lifted toward the stars, Velara stared at the growing darkness around her. Her heart pounded. This was the first time she had broken rules so openly. If she were caught, she would face severe consequences. But fear did not stop her, because she believed she could prevent something terrible, because she believed someone had to act, because she believed humanity might be the only ally willing to help. Hours later, her shuttle exited hyperspace near the Terran diplomatic outpost known as Station Helios 5. It was small compared to Orcian structures, but bright, welcoming, and surprisingly active. Ships of many species docked there, each one seeking trade, cooperation, or simple conversation. As Velara approached, she felt something she had never felt within her own empire: hope. Perhaps here, in this modest human station, someone would finally listen. Perhaps here, she would find the ally her people desperately needed. And perhaps humanity, often ignored by the great powers, would rise to meet a challenge that could reshape the entire sector. For the first time in her life, the youngest heir was choosing her own path. And it might be the most important choice she ever made. Princess Velara's shuttle drifted toward Helios 5, the Terran diplomatic station that floated like a silver wheel above a quiet blue star. It wasn't large or impressive compared to the grand Orcian structures she grew up in, but it carried a different kind of energy, warm, busy, almost chaotic in a friendly way. She could see small ships arriving and leaving every few minutes, each one carrying traders, visitors, diplomats, or curious travelers. As her shuttle connected to the docking bay, Velara felt her heart beat faster. She had crossed Dominion borders without permission, carrying information that could shake the entire sector. She had no idea how humans would react to an alien princess appearing at their door with warnings of danger. But she had chosen this path. She would not turn back. The docking doors opened with a soft hiss. Warm light, louder voices, and the smell of unfamiliar spices drifted into the shuttle. Humans, along with aliens from smaller species, moved around the docking bay, checking cargo, greeting visitors, laughing loudly, arguing over instructions, and waving their hands in expressive gestures. The scene looked disorganized, but somehow everything flowed smoothly. Velara stepped forward, her posture straight and calm. She wore her simple cloak, her crest hidden under the fabric. She hoped it would help her blend in until she understood the situation better. But humans noticed her immediately. A tall woman in a Navy uniform approached with a friendly smile. "Welcome to Helios 5. I'm Dock Officer Maria Steele. First time visiting?" Velara nodded gently. "Yes. I seek—" She paused, unsure how much to reveal. Officer Steele didn't push. She simply smiled wider. "Then let me help you. Do you need a guide? A representative? Someone to talk to?" Velara hesitated for only a moment. Then she said, "I need to speak with someone who handles important diplomatic matters." Steele raised an eyebrow, not in suspicion, but in curiosity. "Diplomatic matters, huh? All right. I think I know the right person." She tapped her wrist device. "Calling Ambassador Reed, visitor requesting immediate counsel." The name struck something in Velara's memory. She had come across human records mentioning Ambassador Jonathan Reed, a man known for his honesty, stubbornness, and unusual ability to build friendships even in the most difficult situations. Some reports described him as unpredictably effective. Others described him as a walking diplomatic headache who somehow gets results. He sounded human in the most human way possible. A few minutes later, a man in a gray suit arrived, walking quickly but not rushing. He was in his late 40s with tired eyes but a sharp expression. His hair was slightly messy, and he carried a small tablet under one arm. He looked like someone who had fought many battles, political battles, and never quite recovered from the paperwork. "Ambassador Reed," Steele said, gesturing toward Velara. "This visitor needs high-level diplomatic discussion." Reed studied Velara carefully, his gaze calm and respectful. "I'm Jonathan Reed, and you are—" Velara lifted her chin. It was time to reveal the truth. "I am Princess Velara of the Orcian Star Dominion." Steele nearly dropped her device. Reed blinked once, slowly. Then he exhaled with a small, tired laugh. "Of course you are. Why wouldn't a princess show up suddenly on my station? That's exactly the kind of day I was expecting." He wasn't mocking her, just reacting with the dry humor humans often use to handle stress, and strangely his tone put Velara at ease. Reed motioned toward a nearby corridor. "Let's speak in private. I imagine you didn't come here for a casual visit." As they walked, Velara observed the station. Humans moved with purpose but not fear. They smiled at strangers, offered help freely, and welcomed diversity as if it were natural. There was something warm about it, something she rarely felt in the formal, rigid halls of the Dominion. Reed led her to a small meeting room with a round table and a transparent window showing the star outside. There were no symbols of power, no intimidating decorations, just a simple space meant for honest conversation. Once they sat, Reed folded his hands. "Now, Princess, what brings you across the sector without an escort?" Velara took a deep breath and placed her diplomatic case on the table. "I believe a large conflict is coming," she said. "A conflict engineered by hidden forces, and I believe your people have noticed it too." Reed's expression shifted from tired curiosity to sharp focus. "Go on." Velara opened the case. Holographic displays rose into the air, showing intercepted signals, strategic movements, and encoded transmissions she had collected in secret. The room filled with drifting lines of light and floating symbols. "These records," she said softly, "point to a conspiracy among radical groups in multiple species. They call themselves the Sector Rebirth. They want the Dominion to fall. They want the great powers to fight each other. They want chaos." Reed studied the information with growing seriousness. "We've seen parts of this. A few strange transmissions, border activity we couldn't explain." He tapped the hologram. "But this is bigger than anything we suspected." Velara nodded. "I tried to warn my people, but no one believed me. They think I am too young to understand diplomacy, too unimportant to speak of danger." Reed leaned back, exhaling slowly. "Humans know what it's like to be ignored by larger powers." His tone softened. "We know how it feels when no one listens, even when the signs are clear." Velara felt a subtle warmth in her chest. "Then you understand why I came?" "I do," Reed said. "But you must also understand the risk you took. If anyone discovers you left your empire on your own, it could cause political disaster." "Yes," Velara whispered, "but disaster will happen anyway if we do nothing." For a long moment, Reed was silent. Then he stood and walked to the window, looking at the distant star. "Your information is real, and it's dangerous. The Terran Union can't ignore this. We need to act." He turned back toward her. "But if we're going to work together, Princess, we need trust. I will help you. Humanity will help you. But I need to know one thing." Velara waited. "Why us?" Reed asked. "Why choose humanity of all species?" Her answer came easily. "Because you notice what others ignore. You react when others wait, and you treat outsiders with respect." She looked into his eyes. "Most of all, you listen. You listen when no one else does." Reed's expression softened in a way she didn't expect. Not with pride, but with a kind of quiet appreciation. "Well," he said slowly, "that's a good enough reason for me." He tapped his communication device. "This is Reed. I need a secure conference room, now, and prepared data analysts, security staff, and a diplomatic task team. We have a serious situation." Velara felt relief spread through her. Her journey had not been a mistake. Someone finally believed her. But before she could speak, an alarm suddenly echoed through the station. Reed's eyes widened. "What now?" A voice came through the speakers. "Unidentified vessel approaching. No transponder. Possible hostile contact." Reed looked at Velara. "Did anyone follow you?" Velara's heart dropped. I don't think so. I use private channels." The alarm grew louder. Lights shifted to warning red. Reed stepped forward, placing himself between Velara and the door. "Princess, stay behind me." It surprised her. This instinct humans had to protect others even when danger was unclear. But the situation was undeniably clear now. Danger had followed her, and the conspirators had found her far sooner than she expected. The alarm lights flashed across the walls of Helios 5 as a deep warning tone rolled through every hallway. People stopped mid-step, looked up, and then rushed into motion with practiced speed. Humans did not panic. They moved with sharp purpose. Princess Velara felt her heart twist. She had hoped to keep her journey secret, She had hoped danger would not follow her here, but the universe did not care about her hopes. Ambassador Jonathan Reed tapped his wrist device. "Control, report," a breathless voice answered. "Unidentified ship still approaching. No transponder, no response to our calls. It's using a stealth drive." Reed turned to Velara. "Stealth technology isn't common. Whoever this is, they're not friendly." Velara held her cloak tightly. "It is the Sector Rebirth. They must have traced my path." Reed nodded sharply. "Then we prepare. You're under Terran protection now. We're not handing you over to anyone." His decisiveness surprised her again. The Dominion valued order and protocol, but humanity valued people. Reed guided her through a side corridor while crew members rushed past them. Some carried equipment, some sealed doors, and some gave respectful nods to the ambassador. Even in crisis, humans recognized leadership. "This way," Reed said. "We can continue our work in the station's secure section." Velara followed him down a narrow passage until they reached a reinforced door. Two human guards stood there, their uniforms crisp, their expressions focused. "Ambassador," one guard said. "Orders?" Reed pointed at Velara. "Protect her at all costs. She is an allied diplomat with critical intelligence." Both guards nodded immediately. No questions, no hesitation. Human loyalty was simple, but powerful. They entered the secure room, a place with a long conference table, several display screens, and heavy blast shielding around the walls. A team of analysts was already waiting, surrounded by floating holographic panels. Reed lifted the data crystal Velara had given him. "We're working with this now, all of it. We need to map connections between the signals, groups, and planetary movements." One analyst spoke quickly. "On it, sir." The team began their work, fingers moving through holograms, eyes scanning lines of alien code. Meanwhile, the room's large window displayed the outside space, distant stars, quiet darkness, and one approaching shadow. The unidentified ship grew larger. Velara forced herself to breathe calmly. She had trained in diplomacy and logic, not danger, but she refused to show fear, not when she had chosen this path. Reed approached her side. "You all right?" "I will be," she answered, "when we stop them." Reed gave a quiet smile. "Good, because humanity doesn't scare easily. And we don't run from problems." Suddenly, the station shook. A tremor rolled through the floor. "That was a warning shot," a guard said. Reed frowned. "Let's hope they don't decide to fire again." The analysts kept working even as the lights trembled. One raised her hand. "Ambassador, we found something. The Sector Rebirth isn't just one group, it's a network of radical cells spread across several species. Some Orcian, some Miran, some Voltrixian." She zoomed the hologram so everyone could see. Velara stepped closer. Lines connected each group, forming a web of alliances. "They're working together," Velara whispered. "Against all of us." Another analyst added, "Their messages mention a trigger event planned soon, something that will start open conflict." Reed clenched his jaw. "A war." "Not just a war," Velara said softly. "A collapse." The room fell silent for a moment. The screen suddenly flickered, and a coded transmission appeared. It was from the unidentified ship. Reed reacted instantly. "Put it on audio." A distorted voice filled the room, cold, mechanical, confident. "Princess Velara, your journey ends here. Come with us, or Helios 5 suffers the consequences." The guards exchanged tense glances. Reed stepped forward, anger clear in his voice. "This is Terran space. Threats won't work here." The voice responded with a quiet, chilling tone. "Then you will all learn the price of protecting a child who does not know her place." Velara felt heat rise in her chest. She had heard those words too many times within her own empire. Reed snapped, Transmission off. The voice vanished. He turned to Velara. Princess, do you know your place? She straightened. Yes, my place is here, helping stop whatever they are planning. Reed smiled slightly. Good. That's what I thought too. Before they could continue, a new explosion shook the station. The guards stepped forward, ready for orders. The analyst closest to the exterior display shouted, The unknown ship launched drones, 3 of them. They're cutting through the outer hull. Reed's voice became sharp and commanding. Lock down Section C. Evacuate any civilians from nearby corridors. Activate defensive drones. He looked at Velara. They're trying to board. Velara felt her pulse race, but she forced herself to stay steady. They want to capture me alive. They won't harm the station if they think they can still succeed. Reed nodded grimly. All the more reason to make sure they fail. Another blast. The lights dimmed for a moment. The analyst ran a diagnostic. They're focusing on the maintenance ring. That area is lightly protected. Reed muttered. Of course they'd strike the weakest spot. Clever. He turned to Velara. We need to move you deeper inside the station. No, she said instantly. Reed blinked. No? If we run, Velara said, they will keep attacking until they catch us. The station will suffer. Your people will suffer. We must stop them now. Reed looked at her, impressed. Princess, you're braver than most kings I've met. Another deep boom echoed through the metal floor. Reed tapped his device. Security report, a voice shouted back. They breached. Drones inside maintenance ring. Reed grabbed a protective shield from the wall, a transparent disc-shaped device used in emergencies. He handed it to Velara. Hold this if something gets close. She nodded. The door burst open and 2 more guards rushed inside. Ambassador, drones are advancing toward central corridors. We need to move. Reed pointed to the analysts. Keep working. Find out where the sector rebirth is coordinating their actions. We need their base of operations. The analysts nodded and returned to their holograms. Velara followed Reed into the hallway, shield in hand. The corridor lights fluctuated, and the distant sound of metal cutting against metal sent chills through her. Reed asked one guard, Do we have eyes on the intruders? Yes, sir. Small tactical drones, fast-moving, sharp limbs. Non-lethal stun rounds. Velara frowned. Non-lethal? They want you alive, Reed said. She swallowed. Then we cannot let them near me. The team turned a corner and froze. 3 drones skittered along the ceiling like metallic spiders, their red sensors glowing. Reed whispered, Stay behind us. The drones dropped to the floor. One guard fired a stun blast. Another shielded Reed. Velara raised her protective device even though her hands shook. The hallway filled with sparks and flashing lights. The drones dodged quickly, their limbs clicking like metal insects. One shot a net-like device toward Velara. Reed stepped in front of her, taking the impact on his arm shield. Not happening. The guards moved with precision. Humans were adaptable fighters even without heavy weapons. Within seconds, 2 drones were disabled. The third tried to retreat, but Reed lunged forward and hit it with a stun rod. The drone collapsed, twitching. Velara stared, breathless. You protect with such intensity. Reed grinned despite the situation. Welcome to humanity. Another alarm sounded, this time not warning of danger, but announcing a discovery. The analyst's voice came through the comm. Ambassador, Princess, we found the main base of the sector rebirth. Sending coordinates now. You need to hear this. Reed and Velara exchanged a look. This was no longer just about survival. It was about the truth behind the coming war. And humanity and the youngest Orcian princess were now the only ones standing in the way. The secure hallway was still filled with the smell of heated metal when Ambassador Reed and Princess Velara received the urgent call from the analysts. Ambassador, the lead analyst said through the comm, her voice tense. "We finally traced all the encrypted signals. The sector Rebirth has a main base, a hidden command center." Reed wiped dust off his sleeve. "Location?" A hologram appeared, projected from the guard's wrist device. A star map lit up in blue. In the center, a faint point blinked, small, unimportant-looking, but carrying a great shadow. "That system is empty," Velara said. "It has no planets, no stations." The analyst answered, "It was empty." They built a mobile fortress inside the asteroid belt, a command base with cloaking fields. They used it to coordinate attacks across the sector, and they planned their next move from there. Reed frowned. "Next move?" The analyst nodded. "They want to strike at the Grand Convergence Summit. Every major species will be there. If the sector Rebirth triggers a conflict in that meeting, the entire region will fall into war." Velara felt her stomach twist. She knew the summit well. It was one of the few events where her family gathered with other leaders. If an attack happened there, chaos would spread instantly. "They want to push all species into blaming each other," she whispered. "A political chain reaction. Unstoppable." Reed folded his arms. "Not if we expose them first." The hologram glowed brighter. The analyst continued. "If we bring this information to the summit, we can warn all delegates before the sector Rebirth makes their move. But we must travel immediately. Their base will detect us if we wait." Reed looked at Velara. "Princess, your people need to hear the truth. But going to the summit means the conspirators will try to stop you again, harder than before." Velara straightened her shoulders. "Then let them try." Reed smiled with deep respect. "Good answer." The journey toward the summit. Within an hour, the station crew prepared a fast, diplomatic cruiser for the mission. The ship was small but built for speed, and it carried advanced communication tools that could broadcast emergency signals across star systems. Reed walked beside Velara up the boarding ramp. Guards followed, carrying small weapons and protective gear. "Are you ready?" he asked. Velara inhaled slowly. "I am." She felt fear rising in the back of her mind, but she did not let it show. Her decision had been made long ago, when she first noticed the signs of danger. The ship launched, leaving Helios 5 behind. The stars stretched into bright lines as the cruiser entered hyperspace. The hum of engines filled the cabin with a steady rhythm. For a moment, there was calm. Reed sat across from Velara, studying her expression. "You know," he said, "most leaders need years to build the courage you have." Velara lowered her eyes slightly. "People think courage comes from importance, from rank. But I had none of that." Reed shook his head. "No, Princess. Courage comes from choice, and you chose to act when everyone else stayed silent." Velara met his gaze. "And so did humanity." Reed gave a small grin. "We try our best." The calm was interrupted by a blinking alert. "Approaching summit system," the ship's AI announced. Velara's chest tightened. Her family, dozens of leaders, hundreds of diplomats. They were all out there. And so were the conspirators. Reed stood. Time to finish this. The Grand Convergence Summit. The summit station was massive, shaped like a ring of silver stretching around a glowing central hub. Thousands of lights dotted its surface like stars attached to metal. Ships from every major species floated nearby, each carrying powerful leaders. As Reed and Velara's ship received landing clearance, she felt a painful mix of relief and dread. She was returning to the place where she grew up, where she was always dismissed and ignored. Would they listen now? The cruiser docked at an official diplomatic gate. Guards from many species stood in the halls, keeping order. Everything about the place was polished, formal, and heavy with expectation. Velara stepped off the ship. The air felt cooler, sharper, like the summit itself was watching her. A group of Orcian royal guards rushed forward, surprised and alarmed. "Princess Velara?" one of them asked. "You disappeared from the capital. Your family has been searching everywhere. You must return to the royal chamber immediately." She lifted her chin. "I came here with urgent information." "You can explain to the council." "No," she interrupted firmly. "I will explain to everyone." Her tone was the strongest they had ever heard from her. Even Reed looked impressed. The guards hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. Reed walked beside her. "Straight to the main assembly?" "Yes," she said. "There is no more time." The truth revealed. The grand hall of the Convergence Summit was enormous, shaped like a circle, with seats for every species arranged around a bright central platform. Leaders murmured among themselves, unaware of the danger creeping toward them. When Velara entered, whispers spread instantly. "The youngest heir? Why is she here? Wasn't she missing? Who is that human with her?" Her siblings sat in the Orcian section, shocked. Her father, the Emperor, glanced at her with confusion and fear of scandal, but Velara did not stop. She walked straight to the center platform. A high official stepped forward. "Princess, this meeting is for senior leaders." Reed raised his voice. "Let her speak." It surprised many. Humans rarely challenged protocol. But Reed's voice carried weight, not authority, but confidence. The hall fell quiet. Velara placed her diplomatic case on the central podium. She pressed a button. Holograms burst into the air, signals, maps, movement logs, encoded messages, everything she and the humans had found. Gasps filled the room. "This is the work of the Sector Rebirth," Velara said, her voice steady and clear. "A conspiracy built by radicals from several species. They want us to fall into war. They want chaos. They want the great powers to destroy each other." Leaders stared, horrified. "They attacked the Terran station to silence me. They will strike this summit next if we do nothing." Reed stepped beside her. "Humanity has confirmed these findings," he said, "and humanity stands with Princess Velara. We will not let the sector collapse." Several species representatives nodded in support. Some murmured in fear. Others looked angry, not at Velara or the humans, but at the betrayal by their own radicals. The Emperor rose slowly. "Velara, why did you not bring this to us earlier?" Her eyes softened with old pain. "I tried, but no one listened." The silence that followed was heavy. Then, a sudden explosion shook the chamber. Lights flickered. Security alarms blared. Velara's heart dropped. "They're here!" Reed grabbed her arm. "Everyone get to defensive positions." But something unexpected happened. Instead of running in confusion, instead of shouting or blaming or arguing, the species united. For one moment, they forgot old anger and old pride. Orcian guards activated shields. Human security teams locked down entrances. Other species formed protective circles around their leaders. The conspirators had planned to break them apart. Instead, they pushed them together. In the chaos, Reed shouted, "Broadcast the evidence across the station." The analysts on Helios 5 had prepared for this. Within seconds, every screen in the summit displayed the Sector Rebirth's plans. Their secrets were no longer hidden. The conspirators' attack failed. Their drones were overwhelmed. Their plan collapsed. The leaders turned to Princess Velara, not with doubt, not with dismissal, but with respect. One elder representative said, "You saved us." Another added, "The youngest heir saw what none of us saw." Her father, the Emperor, stepped forward. "Velara, you acted with wisdom, bravery, and honor. You protected not only our people, but the entire sector." She bowed her head humbly. "I did not act alone. Humanity stood with me." Reed smiled, and for the first time in her life, the hall applauded her, not because of her title, but because she earned it. A new beginning. After the summit stabilized, a united task force moved to capture the Sector Rebirth's base. Species that had been enemies worked together for the first time in years, and at the center of this new cooperation stood Princess Velara and humanity. Reed turned to her as they watched the stars from the summit window. "You changed the future," he said softly. "So did humanity," she replied. "I chose you because you listen, and because you act." Reed laughed lightly. "Well, we try." Velara smiled. "Then let us continue trying, together." For the first time, she felt not like the forgotten heir, but like the leader she was meant to become. And in the wide, dangerous, hopeful galaxy, humanity stood proudly at her side.